Guns in Cyberpunk 2077 fall into three main categories, those being power weapons, which are most similar to our modern day guns, tech weapons, which fire a powerful electrical charge like a railgun, and finally, the intelligent targeting, self-guided missile firing smart weapons, which allow the user to hit targets with far less precision aiming. Today, we're taking a balanced and comprehensive look at each of the three and weighing up their pros and cons to ultimately decide which is best for you. As always, massive shout out to the supporters over on Patreon for going the extra mile to support the channel. More on that at the end, but for now though, let's begin. As stated in the intro, power weapons are a class of gun which most similarly resemble our modern day weapons. As a rule, they take regular ammunition with no futuristic cyberpunk twist. It's a very versatile range of weaponry, and of the 84 unique guns in the game, all of which I have ranking videos on by the way, a whole 55 of them, that's 2/3 of the total, are all power weapons. No doubt, you are going to have the widest array of choice when it comes to this type of gun. Now, whilst a select few guns like Johnny's Malorian and Rogue's Prejudice allow bullets to penetrate walls, that's really the benefit reserved for tech weapons as a rule. The main unique features of these power weapon guns are either ricocheting bullets off of walls or attaching a silencer, though bear in mind you can't do both at once, as silencers remove bullet ricochet. You can also instead attach a muzzle brake to improve the ricocheting power of your guns by a sometimes insane degree. I've covered this in detail in another video, but in short, power weapons are really the only choice if you're doing a stealth build with guns. In my latest playthrough, I've been using as much stealth as I can, since you're pretty delicate in early game, and whilst grabbing foes from behind or using short circuit from afar are probably the best methods for this, it's also often necessary to use a silenced overture revolver and just go for constant one-shotting headshots. As I've said before, stealth in this game is very unforgiving, and most likely you won't always clear a base without getting detected. But the more enemies you can take out like this, the less you're going to get swarmed when they eventually see you. And you don't need a ton of perks for it to be a method that works effectively. Just spec into a few reflexes and handgun perks, as well as possibly some basic ninjutsu if you're planning on being stealthy for the whole playthrough. Doing this should be viable much earlier than a full stealth netrunner who just hacks cameras from across the street. It takes time to build up RAM and get RAM reducing perks and all that. However, being a netrunner does become more viable later on when you take on bigger bases with a much higher chance of getting spotted inside. So that's a bit on stealth. Now what about ricochet? Well, this one again is pretty viable from early on. It does just as much, if not more damage than properly shooting people, and is as simple as aiming at the floor in front of an enemy and watching as the bullets ping upwards. By acquiring the Draw the Line perk, we can get a preview of this trajectory before we shoot, whilst the perk Play the Angles can increase your ricochet damage by up to 50%. Combining this with an epic muzzle brake like the Babaroga, we can make ricochet shots do an insanely broken amount of damage. In fact, a lot of you complained in my muzzles video that shooting the floor in front of an enemy should not yield a greater reward than actually hitting them. And in fairness, I do hear and see your point. It would most definitely be more balanced to serve as a nice occasional bonus, rather than becoming a viable but totally broken build just like this. Still, I do find it to be a bizarrely satisfying experience nonetheless. You can also buy up the perk In Perspective from the Assault Tree to give all rifles and SMGs one additional ricochet, which essentially ensures that shots within enclosed spaces, wherever and whenever fired, will most likely find a target eventually. Oh, and you'd also better hold on to that ballistic coprocessor hand mod that we get at the start of the game if you want this to be effective, since this again massively increases ricochet damage, ricochet chance, and the number of total ricochets. This though occupies the same slot as the smart link for smart weapons. So as you can imagine, the two gun types don't really gel great together. The only viable ricochet gun which does just as well without a ballistic coprocessor is Kongu, which you can pick up during the heist. We'll come back to power weapons in a bit to compare all three types a bit more, but for now, it's on to tech. So, tech weapons. Guns which fire high-powered pulse charges that can penetrate walls and need charging up to be most effective. There's 14 to choose from across all weapon types, making up 1/6 of the guns in the game. But honestly, within that 14 are some utterly mental pieces. They're mostly made up of pistols and snipers, with one tech shotgun and one SMG in the mix. So generally, we're not looking at automatics here, which makes sense given the nature of charging up those shots. Though of course there are exceptions to the rule, like the Senko LX, which does charge up, but then fires automatically. Check out SMG's Ranked if you want to know more about that. Now, the wall-penetrating capabilities are obviously the main selling point here, so it's good to pair these with something which allows you to see through walls. The Ping Quick Hack is the best option here on the whole, though the Threat Detector Kuroshi Eyes mod will achieve the same effect, provided you're engaged in combat, which isn't really a problem since these don't really work as stealth weapons. You can't attach a silencer or muzzle since the pulse beam nature of the gun just means there's no physical projectile which those parts work with. You can, however, change the scope on most of these, but as always there's exceptions to the rule like the Comrade's Hammer. This, by the way, is absolutely the most powerful gun in the game, I have checked, and pairing it with the Sandevistan instead of a Cyberdeck works exceptionally well. That's because it's a single shot gun, and since reloading is something sped up by the Sandevistan, this gun essentially isn't subject to the weapon shot time slowing penalty, which you get when using most guns with a Sandevistan. But whilst the Comrade's Hammer is already very powerful out of the box, there's a huge number of perks in the game which allow you to improve its power exponentially, as well as, for that matter, all the other tech weapons. These by far have the most perks which directly improve them, making them probably the most powerful guns shot for shot later into your playthrough. The perks are up to 11, allowing you to charge a tech weapon's capacity higher for stronger shots, Tesla, which increases your charge multiplier for more damage, Ubercharge, which again increases your damage by only firing fully charged, then there's Gun Whisperer, which I really love as it stops shots from firing automatically at full charge, allowing us to hold a shot ready, Fuck All Walls, which as you can imagine helps with shooting through walls, then there's also Lickety Split, which charges guns quicker, and finally an extremely OP endgame ability, which requires the full 20 points in tech. Superconductor means that tech weapons ignore armor. Those super souped up enemies then are literally just as vulnerable as unarmored gang members wearing nothing but a tank top. As you can see, if we play our perks right, tech weapons can undergo a massive upgrade from early to late game. Though I have found earlier on, without any of these perks, power weapons do tend to still have, well, more power. Though one tech weapon I've always found myself using as soon as I get it during the Ghost Town mission is the Widowmaker, which next to Comrade's Hammer and Lizzie is probably my favourite tech weapon in the game, and it remains a powerful contender throughout. It's got a perfect combination of range and power, and just straight up looks and sounds like an actual railgun. Then again, I do tend to sway towards just trying to one-shot everybody with headshots, so I guess I'm a little biased towards single-shot weapons over automatics. Though I will pose that when you've got two super powerful one-shotting weapons, but one can shoot through walls and the other can't, well, you're basically asking if you want your enemies to be given cover or not. And I suppose that's what tech weapons essentially do. They remove the protection of cover from your enemies. And finally, we come to smart weapons, arguably the most futuristic of the guns, and essentially just legitimizing aimbots. That said, it's also a gun type which never ceases to be a whole load of dopamine-satisfying fun, at least in my opinion. The gyrojet technology involved transforms each individual projectile into a smart, self-guided missile, which should be capable of hitting anything inside the targeting box, and highlights weak spots with red squares ahead of time. Bullets can curve around walls and corners, but not perfectly. If you shoot too close to a wall, the shots may not have enough wiggle room to go around it, and not every single shot is always going to hit a target. However, there are some guns like the AR Divided We Stand and the Yinglong SMG which do take advantage of this in spectacular ways by causing missed shots to explode into either clouds of poison or shards of electricity, meaning that if you're so terrible that you're still missing shots, even with aimbots, the gun will still ensure that some damage gets dealt regardless. Now, as I mentioned earlier, smart targeting only works properly with the Smart Link cyberware installed, an attachment that we don't get by default in the early game, though at the start of Act 2 we will get a reward from Wakako which enables smart targeting. Clearly the devs didn't really intend for this to be an early game weapon, in the same way cyberdecks are pushed on us more than Sandevistans and Berserks, but when we get past what is essentially a 6-hour long prologue, smart guns can be a very good way to breeze through combat with less effort. If, say, you were mostly just playing for the story or something, we can decrease their reload time with the lock and load perk, but other than than that, smart weapons don't specifically have any perks tied to them, unlike the other two, but their damage output will still scale as you level up perks for different gun types. Hell, another benefit actually of a smart weapon only build is that you can definitely miss a bunch of weapon control perks. By that I mean things reducing recoil and improving gun control, since that would kind of be wasted for these, and you could just spend those extra points on higher damage, faster reload, or just making yourself more tanky. It's also the class of gun which Skippy falls into, who is the closest thing to a full-time companion that we can actually get in this game. In fact, I've done a whole lazy build video which explains how to combine easy quick hacking with smart weapons for one of the most overpowered user-friendly builds you could have. Though one amendment I do want to make here to that build is the inclusion of the Chow pistol as a potential alternative weapon. It's the best non-iconic pistol in my opinion, and reloads by switching out the barrel. Now, I was impressed by this in my pistols video, and many people pointed out there that this is likely based off the real-life Metal Storm machine gun, which operates by firing individual bullets from the barrel with an electrical charge. It's more effective than most, quick to reload, and for a smart gun, does some decent damage. But one criticism I will give to smart weapons is that they are definitely the weakest in general of the bunch, which if you think about it does make sense, as if super high damage weapons required minimal aiming, that would be an utterly broken combination. So for the benefit of being able to run around and basically shoot at the air, you might require a few more bullets per enemy, but honestly they're not really that nerfed. And holding enemies in the targeting square for a moment or two should also lock us onto the head for even more lethal shots. In fact, the Bazing Chong shotgun and Ashura sniper rifle are even capable of one-shotting, with maybe some specking into annihilation or assault perks to bring that damage up. Oh, and there's no muzzles or custom scopes to attach to these because the way they target and the way they shoot are just totally different to everything else, so there's not really any customization to these. Now, let's draw some final summarizing comparisons and figure out what each gun type does best. Power weapons are most powerful early in the game, while smart makes for a very easy time, especially towards the end. And tech, while starting out a bit weaker, easily becomes the most powerful set of guns if you invest in the right perks. Power weapons are the only way to go for stealth, but ricochet isn't quite as user-friendly as straight-up smart targeting. Of course, neither of these go directly through walls, so anyone with a half-decent aim may actually find it easier, and possibly lazier, to just go with tech weapons. Power, again, offers the greatest range to choose from, but is a very mixed bag of utterly terrible alongside some of the best. Fenrir, Problem Solver, Moron Labe, Mox, Guts, Johnny's Malorian, Death and Taxes, and Amnesty are some of my top recommendations. Tech offers less choice, but also less crap to sift through. In fact, I'd say there's just as many top-tier tech weapons as there are power, if not more. We have some very high-ranking tech weapons in all of my weapons ranked videos. They really stand out among the rest and include unforgettable names like the Comrade's Hammer, of course, Senko LX, Satara, Breakthrough, Lizzie, and Widowmaker. Smart is similarly more limited with its 15 choices, but boasts the likes of Bezing Chong, Yinglong, Shingen Mark V Prototype, Divided We Stand, Ashura, Chow, and Genjiro. If you're a pretty new player and all these names mean very little to you, then don't worry. There's a lot of different guns and weapons in this game to wrap your head around, but I've covered them all in my Cyberpunk ranking series. So if any particular ones pique your interest, you can find my review on them, as well as info on how to acquire them in their respective video. There's also timestamps if you're looking for specific guns. So power requires probably the most balanced set of skills to use effectively. You'll often need to move a lot to get around cover, whilst also aiming accurately. It's great for builds like stealth snipers with Overwatch, Hitman cosplayers, or perhaps Bullseye, as well as any character from Call of Duty or other modern-day first-person shooters. Tech definitely requires skill when shooting accurately, but moving around cover isn't so important, and other than just keeping yourself protected, you can entirely focus on just being accurate and lining up headshots. It's great for glass cannon builds, longer range attackers, and often conserving ammunition. Weapons are generally more futuristic or reminiscent of the Covenant from Halo, and they definitely make the coolest sounds.
Oh, finally!
Smart then is all about movement, getting into the right position so that your bullets have a nice line of sight to travel to their enemies. You won't have to spend much time aiming, so just assess the battlefield and figure out where's best to be for your own safety or the best shots at others. It's for those who love being in the heat of battle without the pressure of landing all your shots perfectly and not getting shot at the same time. A run and gun build, basically, spraying and praying, but actually having your prayers answered by science. So to round this video off, just like I did when I compared Sandevistan, Cyberdex, and Berserk, I'm going to sum each of these three up in one word. Power, most classic. tech, most powerful, and smart, most lazy. Sorry, I've literally sat here for 10 minutes trying to think of a better one for smart. Lazy sounds a little too negative for me. User-friendly, perhaps? I don't know. Comment below one word you would use to define smart weapons other than lazy, and also tell me which of the three you mostly use and why. Link to the Patreon is in the description if you want to support this channel further. You can pledge from as little as £1 a month, and proceeds will go towards improving the channel and allowing me to make consistently better content and more of those long-form videos like the cars one. As thanks, you'll get credited in every video like these awesome people, as well as access to early and ad-free content. Please though, only pledge if you can afford it. Anyway, there's a lot of guns in this video that I only touched on briefly, so again, if you want more info on any of them, you can find the Cyberpunk rankings playlist down in the description. If you could like this video before you go though, then that would be really helpful. Thank you again so much for watching. I'm Sam Bram, you're great, and I'll see you soon in another video.